Welcome to the August 17th Blue Springs City Council meeting. If you will stand with me, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can be seated. I'll now call the meeting to order. Next item on the agenda is confirmation of a quorum.
Councilmember Kaler.
Present.
Tholen. Present. Brummel.
Present.
Erickson.
Present.
Markworth.
Here.
Rowan.
Here.
Mayor Levisay.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next item is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Brummel.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Markworth.
Aye.
Rowan.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We don't have any public hearings this evening, so we just have the ordinances. I have no speaker appearance forms for the items on the agenda, so we'll move on to item 5, introduction to Reading Bill 5423. It's the budget amendment.
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading Bill 5423, an ordinance amending the 2025-2026 annual budget of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri.
Your Honor, I move to approve on the first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Second reading.
Second reading Bill 5423, an ordinance amending the 2025-2026 annual budget of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri.
Your Honor, I move we approve on the second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Tholen.
Aye.
Brummel.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Markworth.
Aye.
Rowan.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Motion carries and given ordinance number 5516.
Next is item 6, introduction and reading Bill 5424, approving a cooperative agreement between Lux 2 and the City of Blue Springs.
Your Honor, I'll introduce it.
First reading Bill 5424, an ordinance approving a cooperative agreement among the City of Blue Springs, Missouri, Major Lux 2 Community Improvement District, and Lux 2 LLC for implementation of the Major Lux 2 Community Improvement District.
Your Honor, I move to approve on the first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Second reading.
Second reading Bill 5424, an ordinance approving a cooperative agreement among the City of Blue Springs, Missouri, Major Lux 2 Community Improvement District, and Lux 2 LLC for implementation of the Major Lux 2 Community Improvement District.
Your Honor, I move we approve on the second reading and assign the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Brummel.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Markworth.
Aye.
Rowan.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Motion carries and given ordinance number 5517.
Next is item 7, introduction and reading of Bill 5425, approving a use tax ballot issue. City Clerk has a long one to read this one, so stay tuned. Go ahead. I need an introduction.
Thank you, sir. I'll introduce it.
First reading Bill 5425, an ordinance imposing a use tax for the purpose of funding streets and other capital improvements at the rate of 2.5% for the privilege of storing, using, or consuming within the city any article of tangible personal property pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of sections 144.600 through 144.761 RSMO, providing for the use tax to be repealed, reduced, or raised in the same amount as any city sales tax is repealed, reduced, or raised, and providing for the submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval at the general election called and to be held in the city on November 3rd, 2026, proposing the form of the ballot to be employed at said election, and directing the city clerk to do all things called for by law in connection with the holding of said election.
Do I have a motion?
Your Honor, I move to approve the first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
As much as I want her to read that again. Second.
Well, she will read it again. Okay, got a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Second reading.
Second reading Bill 5425, an ordinance imposing a use tax for the purpose of funding streets and other capital improvements at the rate of 2.5% for the privilege of storing, using, or consuming within the city any article of tangible personal property pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of section 144.600 through 144.761 RSMO, providing for the use tax to be repealed, reduced, or raised in the same amount as any city sales tax is repealed, reduced, or raised, and providing for the submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city for their approval of the general election called and to be held in the city on November 3rd, 2026, proposing the form of the ballot to be employed at said election, and directing the city clerk to do all things called for by law in connection with the holding of said election.
Your Honor, I move to approve on the second reading and sign the appropriate ordinance number.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I will just add some comments then before we get to voting. Since just like the work session we had last week, our budget work session, this will request a ballot initiative be put on the November 3rd ballot for the residents to vote on a use tax. Different than I would say the last times we've attempted this, we will have specific information about what this will do for your streets and for the community or for the public infrastructure. And so there's a lot of time between now and November, but this will be a high turnout election. Many residents will have the opportunity to express how they feel about this. We think we've done a good job showing that we will do with what we say we were going to do with your tax dollars, with the bond issue coming out of August 2024. Lots of street maintenance happening. I think this will allow us to continue doing that in a good way, and accelerate that in a meaningful way for the residents. So will be lots of opportunity to share some information between now and then, but this is what we're requesting of the residents this evening. So with that, this will be a roll call.
Councilmember Erickson.
Aye.
Markworth.
Aye.
Rowan.
Aye.
Kaler.
Aye.
Tholen.
Aye.
Brummel.
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Motion carries and given ordinance number 5518.
Next is item 8. This is a discussion about outdoor storage and zoning compliance. This is really a continuation of what we directed staff to bring us information for about a potential code amendment regarding outdoor storage, a conditional use permit for general business. I believe it looks like Mr. Hutcherson is going to kick us off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor mentioned during the last City Council meeting, it was requested to have a discussion regarding outdoor storage and describe the policy framework and provide us guidance and direction on next steps in the path forward. During the conversation, there was a concept of possibly amending the general business zoning district to make outdoor storage a conditional use. So I'm going to walk through this PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have. And ultimately, the goal of this presentation is to guide us towards a policy decision and direction. So again, just to frame the conversation, we are talking about a citywide policy conversation and not a site-specific. So we're not talking about current or pending applications, and really considering if staff should evaluate a text amendment that would allow a narrowly defined outdoor storage use and general business through a conditional use permit process. So we will not be taking any action tonight on current pending rezoning or CUP applications that have been continued to September 8th. So currently under the UDC, there are two separate approvals that are required if somebody is wanting to do outdoor storage. And so the first, in this situation, I've just applied the general business, rezoning that to regional commercial. The general business rezoning does not authorize outdoor storage by right. So there's, and I'll get to this later on in the presentation, that will go into more detail about the different types of classification for outdoor storage. But in general, general business does not allow outdoor storage. The rezoning to regional commercial makes the regional commercial uses both permitted and the conditionally permitted uses applicable. So again, later on in the presentation, I will go through the use table and address that reference. The second approval that is required is the conditional use permit itself. And so this is what allows us to review a proposal and make sure that the use is compatible with the surrounding area and creates the enforceable conditions for the city to regulate. So those conditions typically consist of screening, fencing, surface, lighting, and access and setbacks. Again, I'll go into that in more detail, just kind of setting the stage for the policy environment that exists. Wanted to differentiate between a permitted use and a conditional use. It seemed like there was some confusion, so wanted to provide some additional clarification. So a permitted use is something that is allowed by right explicitly in the code. And that means that the proposal or the development meets all the standards that are defined within the existing code. It still does require them to obtain permits and the site plan approval and go through that process. A conditional use permit is a secondary process that they have to go through the public review, go through Planning Commission and City Council, and make sure that it's compatible with adjacent development. And this is where City Council has the opportunity to impose additional conditions that they believe are necessary in order to make it compatible, so that there isn't any type of nuisance or conflict created between this new use and an existing adjacent use. So in section 405.30, this is the use table. And so whenever Planning Commission or City Council asks what is allowed in a zoning district, this is the tool that we reference to make that determination. As you can see, it's not easily digestible. And so, I mean, this is one of 7 pages. And so we really try to consolidate everything so that you guys have a more firm understanding of what is allowed and what requires a conditional use permit. But just at a high level, this use table is broken into 2 columns. So on the left side, you have your residential zoning districts, and on the right side, you have your non-residential zoning districts, which your non-residential is going to be your commercial districts and your light industrial districts. It also includes the park and open space zoning classification on the right. And then on the far left, under uses, that's where each potential use is defined, and then you have to follow it across. So this is something that, as we move forward, after the comprehensive plan is adopted, there's opportunity for us to work on our policy structure and reformat this in a way that's easier for us to present and to communicate. So wanted to take the opportunity to kind of distinguish the existing outdoor storage classifications. So we currently have outdoor sales, which is limited. And this table that I'm showing is as it applies to regional commercial zoning districts. Outdoor sales limited is specifically sidewalk sales. And so sidewalk sales are allowed in most commercial zoning districts. And in this case, regional commercial, it's allowed, it's permitted by right. It does specify the operations and the configuration of those sales to make sure that there isn't any interference, maintains ADA accessibility, et cetera. Outdoor sales and service is also permitted in regional commercial, and these uses are specifically in nature, like a nursery, garden center, a statuary store, a lumber yard. Outdoor sales, seasonal, these are outdoor sales that take place no more than 6 weeks and twice per year. Again, there's a spatial limitation on that, but just general, that's that use classification. Outdoor sales general, it requires a conditional use permit, and this is typically like your larger nursery, home improvement store, lumber yard operation. Something that's going to be a permanent fixture that would be maintaining operations year round. The next is equipment sales and rental. And so this would be a like a car lot, boat sales, mobile home sales, car rental, and equipment, machinery. And then last is the residential warehouse storage, which also requires the conditional use permit. And this is specifically enclosed indoor residential storage. So something that is like a U-Haul indoor facility. Questions on this? Okay. Next, talking about the CUP and the PD, this was also brought up during the previous conversation. So comparing the conditional use permit and then a planned development. Just wanted to address those differences. So a conditional use permit is where the use is identified as a conditional use specifically in that use table that was previously referenced. It also allows for us to go through that compatibility review to make sure that it's not going to create the nuisance. And then it also goes through the site plan review to develop those enforceable conditions. A plan development is associated with a unique or a development that doesn't necessarily fit within the existing policy structure. And so it is creating a specific zoning district. So it'd be similar to the regional commercial based zoning. Instead of regional commercial, it becomes a PD. So you're reviewing and approving that development, and that is applied as the zoning district. And so that's an opportunity for us to really review and make sure that the development is coordinated in a way that is going to maximize that site and its development. Next is the standard approval process. So briefly referencing the Point of Hope application, they are requesting a narrowly defined outdoor storage use with the existing development. They're not doing any type of new development. And so just walking through kind of our review process. So first, we're looking at the use that they're proposing, the outdoor storage of RVs, boats, and trailers. Next, we're looking at the site improvements and what's needed to reduce that use to the adjacent properties. So we're looking at the screening, we're looking at the fencing and the buffer requirements, paving, the surfacing, and then landscaping. Next, we're looking at the operations and the limits that need to take place in order to ensure that the operations of that use don't cause any adjacent interference. So we're restricting the sales, the display, the repair, servicing, and dismantling of the vehicles that are being stored at that location. Based on all of that, the existing policy framework, our recommendation to the applicant and our proposed path forward was the rezoning to regional commercial to get to that conditional use and then the conditional use application itself. One thing that's important to consider when you are reviewing conditional use permit applications, we can't just say that we're requiring something outside of code because we want that or we like that. It's important that we are always tying it back to either a review criteria of the code or we're tying it to a impact that's been determined by the use or the development. So for example, we're looking at the screening and fencing. We want to reduce the view and visibility and make sure that the storage of a vehicle isn't going to be a detractor to an adjacent property. We're looking at the surface, wanting to make sure that we're controlling the dust, not having mud and debris going off into the right-of-way, and maintaining stormwater regulations. Access is supporting traffic and pedestrian safety. Landscaping is to provide that buffer and that aesthetic improvement. Lighting is required to be all contained on site. We sometimes require photometric studies that specifically looks and addresses that part of the development review. And then setbacks, making sure that the development isn't going to encroach or interfere with anything directly adjacent. The other point that was brought up was trying to understand kind of the difference between general business and regional commercial and what that overlap is. I put here, neither is simply more intense. When you look, so I have the definition of general business and regional commercial up there. They both are oriented towards major highways. They both are serving and generating the same type of commercial retail traffic. The real distinguish is general business is more localized to more of a, I would say, inner city type commercial development, where regional commercial is going to be something that's oriented closer to the interstate and is going to be bringing in a broader market that's, you know, like a 25-mile area into Blue Springs versus where general business is going to be generally local residents frequenting those locations. I did highlight some differences between the general business and regional commercial. Hotels are allowed by right in regional commercial. Car washes are a CUP in regional commercial, RV parks, and transit facilities. And then general business. There's a whole slew of other permitted uses in general business. This isn't everything. Those are just kind of the few that I pulled out that are different between the two. So in terms of a shift in policy direction and kind of next steps, wanted to provide kind of that high-level overview of what that process will look like. So first, staff and legal would review and create the draft policy. That would then be proposed to the Development Advisory Committee. Anything that is amended in the Unified Development Code is required to go to the DAC. The DAC then makes a recommendation to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission goes to City Council, and then we have adopted regulations for new applications to exist in. At this point, all pending applications would remain continued until the new policy is adopted. So yeah, our recommendation is ultimately getting direction on whether staff should evaluate a narrowly defined general business outdoor storage CUP option, and providing those parameters for what that looks like and the performance standards associated with it. Happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Any questions for Mr. Hutchison on the information he's presented? Councilmember Erickson.
I can't remember which page it was on. Maybe it was page 4 at the bottom. No, that's not it. When you talked about the enclosed residential storage, maybe that was page 7. It was on the bottom right, and you mentioned, yeah, that residential warehouse storage, personal property stored indoors. Mm-hmm. And then you used the term that would be like a U-Haul facility. I don't follow how that fits.
So, I was trying to think of a brand name, but it would be similar to the storage facility located at 740.
So when you mentioned U-Haul, my mind immediately went to a truck. And that's not an indoor storage facility. So maybe comparing it to like a Storetropolis or the one. Yeah. In other words, it's all enclosed. It's not in a vehicle.
Yeah. Most U-Haul facilities do have indoor storage in addition
to. That would not apply to that. Outdoor storage of a vehicle outdoors, whatever that. If it's in a truck inside, that's what you're not. If it's personal property stored inside, that indoors is not inside a truck. It's inside a building.
Correct.
Okay,
But U-Haul facilities do have indoor storage that they offer as part of their
okay,
operations.
okay, I get it.
But
I was
yes,
thinking the truck, not
disregard the U-Haul
facility.
reference.
Gotcha,
The-
gotcha,
The better
gotcha.
example would be
I
the
understand.
storage facility at 7 and 40. Multi-floors, it's all contained.
On page 10, where these examples, I'm not arguing with the examples, but here again, it's just the way I think. I see the example on the left and the example on the right as being comparable, like a vocational school and a bar and a tavern. That sets me into like, I like RC better. A marina and a car wash. I don't, and a heliport and a helipad, I guess is what you say, and a transit facility. They seem unusually uncomparable, if you will.
Well, so these are the ones that are the differentiation between.
Those are the only ones that are different? Really? Okay.
In the memo, I did provide an
Yeah.
entire list of,
Yeah, I saw those, but I was looking at this trying to
Yeah.
figure it out, so.
trying to think of a
Go ahead,
format for
somebody else
a
talk.
PowerPoint presentation.
Other questions for Mr. Hutchinson?
I got one
Councilmember
question.
Bremmel.
First of all, thank you for putting this together for us. I guess there was some confusion with this last time of the timeline or the length of time that a conditional use permit has. Can you kind of walk us through that? Because does it stay with the property until it sells? Does it stay with the property until the person that's leasing it leaves? How does that work? I know tattoo is one of them. That's kind of, we've always wondered that question too,
Yeah.
for the conditional use.
So in terms of timeline for the conditional use permit, the approval is tied to the issuance of the building permit and the certificate of occupancy, and that has to be obtained within 1 year. What that does not include is the additional site improvements or additional conditions that have to be done in conjunction with the approved conditional use permit. And so when you go to the site plan review section of the code, it allows for up to 2 years for them to maintain compliance for that. Now, that is the maximum. If council, when they're reviewing a CUP application, they could require those conditions be met in an earlier time frame. But as the policy exists, it would be 1 year for a building permit, certificate of occupancy, or 2 years for the site improvements.
Let me try to rephrase it a different way. So a tattoo artist moves in, right, gets a CUP, leaves that facility, goes to a different facility.
They would
And-
have to apply for a new CUP.
Correct. That old CUP, does it stay on that property or does it go away?
So if another tattoo artist wanted to move in to that facility and operate under those same conditions of the approved CUP, they would be allowed to do that.
So they wouldn't have to do anything. They would just, it would stay.
It would stay.
So if we have 10 tattoo CUPs that are available,
Yes.
we could run out of them if someone goes out of business, but it stays on that property and they want to open another one. So then we wouldn't be able to issue another one.
Correct.
Okay.
You would have to repeal one and create another if you wanted, if it was that type of situation where it was a commodity issue for the regulated industry.
Okay. So it doesn't stay with the applicant, it stays with the property internally.
Your Honor.
It stays with the specific conditions that were created for that property.
Okay.
So it does stay with the property, but they would have to comply with that,
Right.
which so many times it's so detailed and refined down to that specific use and operator that it would need to be repealed because no one's going to be able to meet that.
What's the process of repealing, just out of curiosity?
It's the same process as the adoption.
So it would come back
It would be
to
it would
council?
come back to you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Erickson.
I think that's your question, I understand it, and it raises a few points to me. I think that might be a legal opinion. The way I understand it, I'm sorry I'm talking to you because you asked the question, but the conditional use for the tattoo facility, it's a special one because it requires state licensure in order to operate that. If that tattoo facility does not have that state licensed person in there, I would think that the legal system would say, no, that conditional use is with the applicant, not with the facility itself. And then that applicant would have to go in your scenario, that applicant would have to go someplace else and say, this is where I want to put my license, but it's linked to a license, not to a structure. Am I right on that? Seems like an odd duck in the world of conditional uses.
Right. Well, I think you have two things going on there. You've got the license of the actual person doing the tattoo, and then the conditional use to operate at that particular facility.
Right.
And they can be different.
But the thing that we're missing here is the double license. You have to have a license to be the tattoo person, but in order to have the facility, it has to have a state license.
Yes, you're
And that state
Correct.
license does not run with the business located there. That's what I'm seeing as a difference between those two.
correct.
Correct. Yes.
But when we are reviewing and issuing a conditional use permit, we are issuing it to a property. It's when we go through the
I understand
business licensing and the compliance that we get into the state component and that regulatory structure.
So that'd be a condition to keep that CUP would be to have
That's
to have a
how,
state license.
that's how we are able to have multiple tattoo artists operating at one parcel, because they're all operating under the one CUP, but they all have their
own state
individual state licenses and operating business license under that umbrella. Everything that planning does is layered, so you have to think about it in a dimensional and how everything interfaces.
Thank you for letting me go down that rabbit hole.
Other questions for Nick? Mr. Hutchinson. Okay. Does anybody want to talk about just general business, outdoor storage and general business in general? Since that's kind of what we're talking about. Anybody have any immediate issues with staff bringing back a proposal for a code use?
I want to clarify this whole process. My understanding was we were going to review whether we could do a conditional use for non-permitted, if we could make a GB allow for this one particular facility. Have we determined that we can bring a code amendment to do that? That's what we've determined that we can do.
I'm seeing staff shake their head
Okay.
yes. So
Okay.
that would be, in the specific case you're talking about, that seems like that would be applicable. But we're also just talking about in general, what we
Sure,
want in the
sure.
future to allow
I just want to be sure I
CUP.
go home and I
on general
realize
business.
we did what
Councilmember
we
Gill.
wanted.
But it would also require them to bring certain parts of the property up to code for that certain area, like the gravel or being asphalt or something to that.
It would require the conditions of the CUP,
Correct.
not
But-
necessarily the code.
The policy decision that we are requesting clarification on would be applying to all properties and not necessarily this specific pending Point of Hope application.
Right, and I was using that as an
Yeah.
example. If you have somewhere that with the gravel and you're changing it to a CUP, it would have to be a parking lot that would be
Yeah.
up to code,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
And same thing with the old signs that are up, that would have to fall into compliance with the sign ordinance, correct?
That is a separate issue. The billboard sign that exists on the site, there was a legal interpretation done in 2018 by the city. I would be happy to provide that documentation to you if that has not been provided. But at that time in 2018, the existing billboard sign was classified as a legal non-conforming use.
It's
So it would
classified as
not-
what? I couldn't hear you.
The existing billboard sign that's on this property, on the Point of Hope property, was determined to be a legal non-conforming use.
Grandfathered essentially.
So then, if we're gonna talk about that, is it appropriate to talk about that? That particular sign? Then
long
my
as
question
it's
would be, can something that, if the business or the facility, isn't supposed to be there, so to speak, it's not in compliance, then how does that get grandfathered? That's another legal issue, and
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
a
the grandfathering was based upon, or the legal interpretation was based upon the off-premise nature of that particular sign, not the on-premise nature, and my understanding as well as in the sign ordinance, this is considered a pole sign, not a billboard sign.
Yeah, like I said, this is a separate thing, and I would prefer to have this conversation as it relates to the specific development.
Okay, well, that's another thing. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
But to answer your question about the grandfathering and the use, the Point of Hope, in the Point of Hope case, that determination was never made. So
Determination what? Was never made, you said?
the determination of the use being non-conforming, that was never made. That's why they're going through the conditional use permit process now.
Okay. Since I've got to do this too, in 2010, at least 4 years prior to when Point of Hope acquired this property, that sign is in the overhead view of the Jackson County parcel viewer.
Okay.
So this isn't something, this is something that was left over and vacant for a number of years, and then they bought the property. So that's where I get in really confused on the, or maybe not confused, get frustrated with the grandfathering, because it was vacant, and in other places in the community, we've taken those signs down.
Sure.
But maybe that's out of order to
Well,
talk about those at
I mean, I
this point.
appreciate the insight, and we can have that prepared for the September 8th meeting when the Point of Hope application is considered. But in terms of tonight's discussion, again, we're looking for direction for next steps on the policy framework. If staff should prepare a text amendment that would narrowly define the outdoor storage and general business and start with that process.
Okay, any other comments or discussion for staff?
So, Your Honor,
Yep, Councilmember Kaler.
would a outdoor storage, though, still be outdoor storage if it's in the confines of a building that has no sides, but it still has a roof over its head? Is that still considered outdoor storage?
It depends on the definition that is created, but in the existing policy framework, it would be considered outdoor storage because it's not enclosed. That would be considered covered storage if you wanted to classify it or define it as something.
So does staff, do we need a motion for this, or is this just discussion enough? Is
Your
a
Honor,
motion appropriate?
The motion we had last time, if I'm not mistaken, was for staff to come back and research if we could do this, and it sounds like we can, and then if we could, we were going to pursue it. So it seems like the last motion would stand, but if not, I would move that we bring it, can I do that in a discussion?
I'm getting head nods that we can, so I guess that
Okay,
it's
well then-
appropriate to have a motion.
What would my motion be?
Direct staff to bring back a code amendment regarding outdoor storage for a CUP in general business.
I move that.
Is that enough?
And I would second it.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm just waiting for somebody to propose a helipad in general business, so I'm excited for Price Chopper to have a helipad.
So if it's a drone, I guess it's out of helipad.
I mean, guess it depends on the definition. All right, then, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Staff will bring that back to us at a future meeting.
Yeah, so
With that, we have the visitor section. I don't have any speaker appearance forms. We'll go to council member comments. Council members, you have anything to
Your
add
Honor.
this evening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Councilmember Taylor.
I got, absolutely just love the new streets that are going in. They're nice, they're really smooth. And I want to thank our citizens for being patient going through this process, but please still be a little more patient because we're still got some more to do. And, as you can see, what the finished product has been really, really nice. I would like to, however, remind everybody, we are not on, it's not a speedway. Just because it got resurfaced, the speed limit is still the same. And I will hope that our police department would take care of that to make sure the speed limit stays the same.
Are you advocating for potholes as speed control? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that would basically, that basically helped, but when you're
Yes,
sitting at
that's right.
15th Street trying to get on South Downer Road and Mario Andretti comes and flying down, it's kind of hard to get out. But no, all seriousness, I appreciate the citizens being really patient with this process because we put a lot of miles in this year, and it looks good. And people always was saying earlier that we wasn't doing anything. Well, don't hold your breath because something else might just pop.
Yes, we're not even half done, I don't think. There's still a lot of pavement to happen. Neighborhoods to the south part of town, so District 3 will be happy, so.
Your Honor.
Yeah, Councilmember Erickson.
Councilmember Kaler and I have in the past used the famous word ditto. And I would like to ditto that, but since you did that, I would implore people to use a zipper technique going north
On 7
on
Highway.
7. I mean, it's nuts. They're backed up to Price Chopper South and the other lanes, and yeah, that's the speed deal. Anyway, please use the zipper technique. Chief, get them out there and tell them to do that.
Councilmember Brummel?
I'm going to piggyback off that and say I want to thank all the staff too. The staff's been getting up early to do traffic control and make sure the roads are shut off and getting up at 2 and 3 in the morning and staying long days. So just supporting our staff and telling them thank you for the long hours they're putting in as well.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Seen it mentioned, we have a contractor doing a lot of the work as well, Superior Bowen, and they're doing a great job, so a lot of pavement going down.
We got dittos from 2.
That's-
Now we need some 3
need
dittos.
double
Oh, we got
dittos,
3,
okay.
now we need 2 dittos, but we don't, you gotta.
Are there other council members that have comments, like to add something for this evening? No? Okay, well, I've got a couple. Couple of events coming up. Our Community Services Bureau with the Police Department is doing a Neighbors in Need event at Price Chopper North. That's on Wednesday, August 26th from 9 to 1 p.m. So this is specifically to help some of our vulnerable population if they have need for ID cards or social security cards or birth certificates, community resources. Community Services Bureau put together a mobile unit to help that population get some of those resources. It's hard to even get government assistance without an ID card or a social security card or birth certificate, and so just having access to those can be very helpful. So North Price Chopper, Wednesday, August 26th from 9 to 1 p.m. They'll be there for that. Also, next week on August 25th, school starts. So that'll happen before our next council meeting. I know I've got a couple of kids that are both excited and disappointed that school is starting. So excited to get their new lockers and their schedule, but not really looking forward to school starting. So just as we always recommend, there will be school buses on the streets, the new paved streets. There'll be kids walking to school, riding their bikes. So please be cautious as there are more people on the roads, kids especially. So be cautious as that happens. Also, between now and the next meeting, the next city council meeting will be September 8th. And on September 7th, our Blue Surf Bay closes and the splash pad will close. So you have just a couple weeks left to get in your water activities. Councilmember Brummel, are you sad about that?
Oh, I was just going to say just the outside.
Well, that's true. Okay, the outdoor part of Blue Surf Bay, that's correct.
And the indoors closed this week for maintenance.
For maintenance. And our splash pad at Bursall Mill Park will close on September 7th. So Labor Day is your last day to enjoy the outdoor amenities at those two locations. And the only thing I have is a concert in the park this Sunday. So still a few exciting things going on as summer winds down, but that's all I got. Am I missing anything, staff, council? Then I will have the city clerk read a motion we can so move to go into closed session.
Mayor, a motion is in order for council to go into closed session pursuant to section 610.021 subparagraph 1, revised statutes of Missouri, for the purpose of privileged communications between a governmental body or its representative and legal counsel, including litigation, and that any minutes, documents, and other records discussed or taken during the closed session remain closed, and that this body stand adjourned at the completion of such session.
So move.
Was there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Markworth.
Say aye.
Rowan.
Whatever you want to say. Aye.
Kaler.
I'm here, but I.
Dolan.
Aye.
Brummel.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Mayor Levacy.
Aye. We will head into closed session.
You could have said nay. but I don't want to play.